Join our community by subscribing. Every click helps us share more stories like this one. The introduction. It was a quiet Tuesday evening in the small town of Maplewood, nestled deep in the heart of the Midwest. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting an orange glow over the serene street. With a population barely hovering above 3,000, Maplewood was a place where everyone knew each other's names, and the sound of sirens was an unnerving rarity. However, that crisp evening air would bear witness to a crime that would shatter the town's facade of safety. In an aging Victorian house on Elm Street, home to the Johnson family, for generations, 18-year-old Emily Johnson sat at her desk, studying for her high school final exam. She jotted down the periodic table, her brow furrowed in concentration, as she scribbled notes in the margins of her textbook. Outside her window, the chirping of crickets and the distant laughter of children playing in backyards melded into a symphony of suburban life. But not everything was as it seemed. As darkness enveloped Maplewood, a figure lurked just beyond the periphery of the streetlight glow. Concealed beneath the shadows, clad in dark clothing, they moved with a purpose, their presence unseen and undetected by the peaceful inhabitants of the town. The oppressive silence of the night set the stage for what was to come, a reality that would plunge a once bustling community into confusion and despair. Hours later, sirens blared through the streets, shattering the evening's tranquility. The call had come from the Johnson residence, a frantic voice reporting screams, something much darker echoing within its walls. Upon arrival, the officers would find not just another house, but the heart of a tragedy that reshaped the destiny of Maplewood forever. The victim. Emily Johnson was the embodiment of youth and promise. With her long chestnut hair framing a face often lit up by laughter, she was adored by her friends. A diligent student and an aspiring artist, known for her volunteer work at the local animal shelter. She had a heart that fit her petite frame, a heart that beat for those who needed help. The community knew her as the kind girl who would bake cupcakes for bake sales or organize charity drives for the homeless. On the day of her murder, it was like any other ordinary Tuesday. Yet Emily felt a profound sense of optimism as she walked the halls of Maplewood High School. Her friends gathered around her during lunch, engrossed in animated conversations about summer plans, college applications, and the latest trend. They never would have guessed that beneath the smiles and laughter, a veil of darkness was rapidly closing in. In the days leading to that fateful night, Emily had noticed strange occurrences in her neighborhood, a nagging feeling that she was being watched. She brushed it aside as paranoia, the product of overstudying and late-night cramp. But with each passing evening, an icy sense of dread seeped into her consciousness, whispering to her that someone was lurking in the shadows. As the clock struck 10 that evening, Emily's world warped into something unrecognizable. Reports later revealed that she had heard a noise outside her window, a faint scratch against the wooden pane. In her confusion, she picked up the phone to call her best friend. But before the words could escape her lips, she heard footsteps, heavy and deliberate. Moments later, those hurried sound waves spiraled into a cacophony of fear. The tragic contrast of her terrified screams would resonate throughout Maplewood, a haunting echo that would mark the beginning of a harrowing investigation, the heart-wrenching truth that Emily Johnson, the girl everyone cherished, would never return to her family and friends. The crime scene. The night had shifted from serene to chaotic. Maplewood's police department responded swiftly as they arrived at the Johnson residence. Blue and red lights flickering like desperate cries against the enveloping darkness. Officer Mark Henderson, a seasoned detective with over a decade on the force, could sense the tension in the air even before stepping out of his patrol car. As he approached the house, he was met with the pungent scent of furth kind that clung to the air and threatened to suffocate. Scattered across the manicured lawn, a gathering of anxious neighbors whispered in hushed tones, their faces illuminated by the glow of the flashing lights. The front door stood ajar, a reluctant invitation into the scene of devastation that awaited inside. Once within the threshold, Officer Henderson was hit by an overwhelming wave of chaos. The familiar layout of the Johnson family home seemed disjointed, as if it had become an unfamiliar labyrinth of horror. He stepped gingerly over fallen books and displaced furniture that scattered the usually neat living room, remnants of a struggle etched into the fabric of each moment. It was in the back room where Emily lay, her vibrant life extinguished far too soon. The sight was haunting, a stark contrast to the young woman's vivacious spirit. With her head turned slightly to the side and her eyes closed as if she were merely sleeping, the reality of her death was palpable. The room bore the marks of violence. A shattered vase lay nearby, its shards glistening like anguished tears on the hardwood floor. A pool of crimson slowly seeped into the fibers of the carpet, a grotesque hallmark of the tragedy that had just unfolded. Detective Henderson took note of the details: the broken window, the overturned chair, the lifeless body that told a story of struggle. He felt the gravity of the scene pressing down on him, the weight of a lost future, a family shattered. He issued instructions for evidence collection while radioing for an on-site forensic team. Within these four walls, the echoes of Emily's last moments unfolded like an intricate tapestry of sorrow. As he began to piece together the events leading up to this tragedy, Officer Henderson realized that this investigation would not only demand justice for Emily, but would also challenge the very essence of the community that thought they were safe. And stay tuned. The early investigation, the aftermath of that fateful night, gripped Maplewood like a vice. The detectives immediately began canvassing the neighborhood, knocking on doors, and seeking answers hidden within the fog of fear and uncertainty. Officer Henderson spearheaded the efforts alongside his partner, Detective Lisa Morales, who embodied a quiet intensity that ignited whenever she stepped into a room. Together, they sifted through the evidence, determined to uncover the truth behind Emily Johnson's tragic end. Their first step was early morning interviews with neighbors who had been home during the hours leading to the crime. As they approached the first door on Maple Lane, the sun rising lazily on the horizon, the scent of fresh coffee mingled with the crisp air. Mrs. Callahan, an elderly woman with a penchant for knitting, answered with concern dancing in her eye. She hadn't seen anything unusual, yet the veneration in her voice for Emily shone through, painting the young girl as a shining star in the community's tapestry. Next came the homes of Emily's closest friends. Candace, shy and soft-spoken, conveyed a sense of disbelief as she recounted their last conversation about prom plans, a harmless banter now overshadowed by tragedy. She mentioned a boy from school who had taken a sudden interest in Emily, descriptive words tumbling from her lips. But Henderson couldn't help but notice the trembling of her hands, an indicator of buried anxiety. Each testimony yielded small shards of potential leads. As the detectives returned to the precinct, They tirelessly dissected each account, piecing together a timeline that felt both defined and elusive. The boy that Candace spoke of, Marcus, had a few brushes with the law, an unsettling warning sign that beckoned for further investigation. By the end of the first week, the forensic team had provided crucial details from the crime scene. Fibers from a dark hoodie were found snagged on the broken window frame, along with an unidentifiable shoe print near the back door. The clock was ticking, and with every hour that passed, the sense of urgency grew heavier on Henderson and Morales' shoulders. The sun set on Maplewood once more, casting elongated shadows across the streets. But the small town was now shrouded in an uncomfortable stillness, a sense of foreboding that crept beneath the surface, reminding all who lived there that underneath the trappings of normalcy lay an inescapable evil lurking in the darkness. The dead ends. Days turned into weeks, and the investigation into Emily Johnson's murder swirled like a tempest, leaving Officer Henderson and Detective Morales in a dizzying dance with dead ends. With each new lead, the weight of frustration grew heavier, pressing down on their spirits like a dense fog that refused to lift. They had dissected every witness statement, chased every rumor, and scrutinized every piece of evidence, yet clarity continued to elude. Tensions flared at the precinct as theories were debated. Back and forth a haunting boy named Marcus, the nerves of the friends close to Emily, and the ripped fibers that hinted at a struggle. After an exhaustive investigation into Marcus, they ruled him out, finding him at a school soccer game when the crime occurred, verified by multiple witnesses. Police had interrogated him for hours, only to find a scared adolescent whose reality was laced with anxiety and loneliness. With each passing day, the media frenzy intensified, and the press had started to pick apart every aspect of Emily's life for a narrative, offering wild speculations that left the Johnson family raw with grief. Local newspapers splashed headlines across their pages, urging anyone with information to come forward, but no new leads materialized from the fervor. The community solidarity turned into a paralyzing paranoia as residents locked their doors tighter and whispered hushed suspicions about one another. Henderson often found himself revisiting the crime scene late at night, battling against shadows, desperate to glean fresh insights. The echoes of Emily's screams haunted him, mingling with the bitter chill of the night air. Each corner of the house that once radiated warmth and laughter morphed into an abyss of unanswered questions. In the days that followed, they began to examine Emily's online presence, searching her social media accounts for threads that could unravel the mystery. With the help of a tech-savvy analyst, they delved deeper into her digital life, uncovering messages that hinted at brewing tensions, misunderstandings, and the complexities of teenage relationships. They found text threads that appeared innocent at first glance, but crumbled under scrutiny, revealing conflicts that hinted at a darker undercurrent. But still, hope evaded them like phantoms in the night. Henderson and Morales found themselves trapped in a labyrinth of frustration, each path leading back to the same disheartening conclusion. A young woman's life was snuffed without a trace of her killer. The pressure was mounting, and as exhaustion took its toll on both investigators, a chilling realization settled in time was not on their side. And without new evidence, Emily's murder could fade into the cold recesses of unsolved mystery. A break in the case. As the weeks rolled on, The relentless pursuit of justice felt like an uphill battle. Officer Henderson and Detective Morales questioned if they would ever find the threads needed to weave this fractured tapestry back together. Their hopes flickered like a candle in a storm, resilient yet fragile. Just as the case seemed destined for stagnation, an unexpected glimmer cut through the darkness. Late one evening, while sifting through evidence photos from the crime scene, a familiar face hovered behind the glass of a reflection. Officer Jordan Young, the precinct's fresh recruit, approached with an eager spark in his eyes. He had been poring over the mundane details of Emily's digital footprint, while the detectives remained anxious and weary, and something had struck him as odd. "Detectives," he interrupted, excitement lacing his voice. "I found something. Look at this. I found something. Look at this." The file he was clutching revealed screenshots of Emily's conversations with a select group of friends, not just the mundane chatter about schoolwork, but whispers of tensions involving a girl named Tara, someone Emily knew to challenge her in social circles. The tension between them escalated, and it appeared an argument on a group chat had led to hard feelings that spilled into real life. Digging deeper, Officer Young discovered that Tara often hung out with a different social circle that included boys known for their aggressive behavior. Their social dynamics were notorious, especially when it came to relationships. Descriptions of their escapades hinted at jealousy, drama, and an unsettling thirst for attention that could spiral into unpredictability. Eager to verify their suspicions, Henderson and Morales began tracking down these individuals. Piecing together timelines and relationships as they went, they uncovered unsettling accounts of Tara and Emily's volatile friendship, and learned of an incident at a party where Emily had confronted Tara over a rumor. The friction had ignited a fight that left both girls in tears, but afterward, it seemed the hostility had simmered for months. In searching for Tara, the detectives approached a troubled neighborhood where rumor had it she often hung out. With each questioning, more puzzle pieces emerged. Eyewitnesses who claimed to have seen Tara's boyfriend, Danny, lurking near the Johnson residence in the days before the murder. The threads were beginning to tighten. Every account knit a clearer picture of potential motives tangled within jealousy, betrayal, and social revenge. As they prepared for a deeper investigation into Tara and her circle, a mixture of dread and exhilaration coursed through Henderson and Morales. They sensed the momentum shifting in their favor. Each step taken was a heartbeat closer to finding the truth hidden in the shadows, and they were determined to uncover who had taken Emily's life and why. The suspect. With renewed energy, Henderson and Morales focused their sights on Tara and the friends surrounding her. Their investigation led them through the aftermarket halls of Maplewood High, where whispers followed the detectives, like clouds trailing behind a storm. It seemed the entire town was both on edge and fixated by the revelations slowly surfacing. Through careful interviews, it became evident that Tara Thompson was not merely a bystander in a story of teenage drama. She embodied collateral damage in a tale woven with jealousy and betrayal. Though she maintained a facade of innocence, the lingering relation suggested a darker underbelly that matched the hostile atmosphere growing around her. One Thursday afternoon, the detectives approached Tara. During lunch, she sat with her friends, snacking on chips as they giggled and traded anecdotes. The carefree laughter faded as the detectives introduced themselves. A wave of trepidation rippled through the group, but Tara's bravado held strong. "Why are you here?" Tara asked, her voice steadied with a confidence that was more facade than fact. "Can we talk to you for a moment, Tara?" Morales requested, not bothering to mask the seriousness in her tone. The tension was palpable as they led Tara away from the table. Glances followed like whispered conversations flitting through the air. The cafeteria's noise dulled into a murmur, creating a bubble of discomfort around them. As they settled into a quieter area, Morales began to probe Tara with questions about her relationship with Emily. "I don't know what you're trying to imply, but Emily and I had our issues." "Sure," she replied, her voice rising. "That doesn't mean I'd hurt her. We were friends at least before all the fighting." The defiance shimmering in her words faded only slightly as the detectives deftly navigated the conversation toward the party where tensions flared. Every denial she gave seemed more hollow than the last. Henderson raised an eyebrow. "Several witnesses saw you arguing there, Tara. Can you explain what happened after that?" Tara shifted uncomfortably, the facade of control beginning to crack. I'm tired of being the bad guy. She was better than me. I wanted things to be different." While her defense rattled in the air, a sense of unease prickled at the back of Morales' mind. Tara's emotional struggle seemed real. Yet the detectives were now aware that adolescent emotions could twist into harmful actions with unsettling ease. The determination creased the corners of Henderson's mouth. "Tara, we want to help you, but we need to know everything. Where were you on the night Emily was killed?" The question hung heavy in the air, transforming from an inquiry into an interrogation. As the flicker of trepidation crossed Tara's face, Morales noticed something shift within her, a cornered animal, desperately seeking an escape route. The answers the detective sought appeared just out of reach. But a singular idea crystallized in their minds. Tara Thompson was not just a casualty in this narrative. She was now a suspect tangled within the web of Emily's tragic end. The trial. Months after Emily Johnson's murder, the echoes of that fateful night reverberated into the very courtroom where justice would be sought. The small town of Maplewood, still scarred and seeking closure, filled the chamber with hushed anticipation. Families, friends, and community members packed the benches, their eyes glued to the platform where the defendant sat, a young girl burdened with the weight of division and the tragedy that transpired. Tara Thompson, once a bright and ambitious teenager, now wore the colors of despair. Her once vibrant laugh had been replaced by a haunted gaze that flickered nervously between her attorney and the jury. The charges of second-degree murder loomed above her, heavy like the shroud of grief, enveloping everyone who had known Emily. The prosecution laid out the foundation of their case with meticulous precision, detailing the events that culminated in Emily's untimely death. They presented harrowing testimony from classmates who recounted the animosity between the two girls, channeling the tumultuous emotions of jealousy and betrayal into a narrative that painted Tara in a compromising light. Detective Morales took the stand, articulating the disturbing timeline filled with whispers of tension and altercations all weaving to form a collage of motive. As the prosecution operated with methodical fervor, the defense positioned Tara as a victim of circumstance, a teenager lost in a chaotic world of adolescent rivalry. Her attorney urged the jury to consider the complexities of youth, the struggles, the miscommunication that can spiral into life-altering decisions. But with every defense, the presence of undeniable evidence loomed heavily over the courtroom. Witnesses recounted the fight at the party, their words like daggers that skewered Tara's innocence. As they described the scene, a sense of anguish blanketed the air, tightening around those who remembered Emily's laughter. Extinguished too soon. One testimony spoke of a chilling comment Tara had allegedly made after the argument. "I wish she'd just go away." Gaze blurred into a sequence of heart-wrenching testimonies and emotional exhibits of the loss felt by the Johnson family. They sat in the front row, grief etched on their faces, their words crafted from heartbreak, expressing the irreplaceable void Emily left in their lives. Tara's defense, meanwhile, highlighted her immaturity, claiming that her actions stemmed from an impulsive confrontation fueled by overwhelming emotions. They contended that Tara never intended to harm Emily, that it was an accident, a tragic culmination of teenage chaos. As the trial progressed, tensions ran high, culminating in a harrowing conclusion with Tara taking the stand. She spoke with trembling conviction, recounting the events of that night in a wavering voice. The sobs of remorse filled the courtroom, shaking the hearts of all who listened. In a shocking twist, she admitted her fears and regrets, expressing genuine sorrow for the life she had unintentionally taken. "I'm so sorry. I never wanted this," she cried, her words echoing in the silence. As the closing arguments were delivered, the case was handed over to the jury, a mix of emotions swirling like a tempest. They faced the monumental task of deciding the fate of a young girl tangled in a tragedy that had upended their community. And in that crucible of grief, one undeniable truth resonated that beneath it all, Emily Johnson's story, our heart-wrenching testament to lost potential. As the jury deliberated, the town held its breath, craving resolution. In time, they would learn that journeys for truth often lead to unexpected destinations, and the echoes of a moment can ripple through the lives of many. The aftermath. The verdict hung in the air like a fragile whisper as the courtroom settled into an eerie silence, each member of the jury taking their eyes off the table and glancing momentarily toward the stunned faces of Emily's family. Tara, pale and trembling, awaited her fate, the cacophony of uncertainty drowning out the calls of her attorney's reassurances. As the foreman rose, the gravity of his role enveloped the room. A verdict could alter the trajectory of many lives forever. "Guilty of second-degree murder," he pronounced, his voice strong yet somber, carrying implications heavy enough to change the very fabric of Maplewood itself. The chamber erupted into a chaotic mix of tears and muffled gasps, the balance of grief and relief veering into raw emotion. For Emily's family, there was closure, a pained affirmation that their daughter had once existed and her life mattered. In the days that followed, the impact reverberated through the community. Town meetings filled with discussions on how to address the profound consequences of the tragedy that had unfolded. Grief counselors, I support to the students at Maplewood High, where Emily had been not merely a student, but a beloved teammate. As Tara prepared for her sentencing, she faced an uncertain path that intertwined with her past. Once a bright student with dreams of art and friendship, she now brimmed with a burden most adults might crumble beneath. Her days in juvenile detention would haunt her, as would the faces of those who'd known Emily's vibrant girl, whose laughter would forever echo in the halls of the school she had loved. They would often replay the events in their minds, reflecting on the intricate web woven by both turmoil and tragedy. Their commitment to the community deepened, working with local leaders to establish programs aimed at tackling bullying, fostering mental health awareness, and encouraging communication among peers. The purpose was clear: to prevent another tragedy from ever emerging from the shadows again. Meanwhile, Emily's family honored her memory through initiatives that helped other young people express their feelings, utilizing art as a cathartic means of communication. An annual foundation was established in her name, providing scholarships for high school students aspiring to study the arts. It became a blaring reminder that Emily's legacy would not merely be defined by her death, but would illuminate the sturdiness of compassion, understanding, and hope for those who remain. As each season changed in Maplewood, the locals would gather on the banks of the Little Pigeon River, setting up lanterns in Emily's honor, releasing them into the night sky, glimmering like starseeds, one representing a cherished memory of a life cut short. It became a tradition not just to remember a girl taken too soon, but to cultivate an understanding that each life is woven with the potential for goodness, even amid chaos. And while the scars of that dark night would never fully heal, the community vowed to carry forth the lessons learned, striving to nurture connection instead of division, forever united in a fragile dance between light and shadow. Reflection. As time unfurled in Maplewood, it marked not just seasons, but also lingering grief and healing journeys, melding into a deeper understanding of loss and the fragility of life. The community had transformed, its members bound together by tragedy, yet fueled by an undeniable resilience. Visions of Emily haunted the town, illuminating moments of laughter, light, and love, infused into every Cornera ghost that thrived in memories, inspiring many to articulate their emotions through creativity and connection. For those most affected by the tragedy, Emily's family, friends, and even her reflection took on a newly profound meaning. Emily's parents, while bearing the perpetual pain of their emptiness, sought meaning through advocacy, tirelessly working to create safe spaces in schools. They often met with students, sharing stories, inviting others to speak candidly about their struggles and hopes, reinforcing the importance of empathy over judgment. On the opposite side, Tara navigated her new reality behind bars, filled with a troubling cocktail of remorse and regret. As she wrote her thoughts in journals filled with raw honesty, she began to understand the depth of her actions and the lives they impacted. These reflections became her crucible, a path toward transformation, as she sought to understand herself beyond the confines of her past choices. As each year passed, the anniversary of Emily's death shifted into an annual celebration of her life, her art, her passions, her laughter. Lanterns released into the starry sky became symbols, not just of remembrance, but of a promise to honor her legacy through kindness and community connection. In quiet moments of solitude, whether it was by the riverbank or embraced by the warmth of home, residents reflected on the lessons life had etched into their hearts. The echoes of the past merged with hope for the future, reminding everyone that from tragedy can emerge an understanding of love, forgiveness, and the strength found in vulnerability. As the story of Emily and Tara echoed throughout time, it served as a vivid reminder that every life, no matter how fleeting, leaves an indelible mark on those who knew and loved.